Hey guys, I'm Dave Trull and welcome to the Trull Gallery. About 4 months ago, I built a set of cedar Adirondack chairs for our patio. If you haven't seen that video, I add a link below for it. When the chairs were done, I finished them with kind of a deck preservative. It was a clear coat and was hoping that they would age gracefully and pick up some nice silver patina, which they did. But sadly, they also got kind of rough to sit on. We're getting uncomfortable. This is Florida and we wear shorts and t-shirts a lot. About a month later, I built these tables to go with them. This time I used spar varnish as a finish. Well, the tables look really nice and the chairs are, well, they're getting a bit rough. So after a little pressure, I conceded that it was time to recoat the chairs and get them to look as nice as the tables do. In this quick video, I'll show you how I took these chairs from this to that.
The first step in the process is to disassemble the chairs. Because I've got limited space, I chose to refinish one chair at a time. I started by removing the backs from the arms and then the rear legs. I used a ratchet to remove the lag screws, but I was able to remove most of the nuts and bolts by hand. Then I removed the pivot blocks, the arms, and finally the front legs. The next step was to sand all of the chair parts. I started with my random orbit sander and 120 grit paper. These chairs are made of western red cedar, which is a very soft wood that cleans up pretty easily. You want to make sure that you not only remove the oxidized top layer of the wood, but also remove any of the residual oil from the initial finish. This first sanding took me about an hour and 6 sanding discs. It took that many not because I used cheap discs, but because the oil clogs the paper fairly quickly. Once that was done, I switched to 180 grit paper on my random orbit sander. And then it was time for a new finish. I used my HVLP spray system with an exterior water-based finish. This particular finish is still new to me and honestly I'm not really a big fan. It has to go on fairly heavy so that it can flow out. If it's sprayed too lightly, the finish won't flow and it looks like orange peel. Basically it's all bumpy. If I sprayed too heavy, it would cause drips that required extra work to sand out. I think next time I'll go back to a finish that I've used for years without all the struggles. I put on 2 coats of finish on all sides of the chair parts and then hand sanded all the parts with 220 grit paper. This went fairly quickly, even with all the curves and spaces and weird shapes. I think I used about 1 sheet of sandpaper for the entire process. And when I'm hand sanding, I like to work with a 1/8 sheet of paper at a time. That allows me to get into small areas and I can use up the entire bit of sandpaper before getting a new piece. Before spraying the final coat, I took the time to clean everything off. I started by wiping the parts down with a microfiber cloth to remove the bulk of the sanding dust. I also used my air compressor to blow out all the nooks and crannies like screw heads and between the slats. The last step was to wipe all the parts down with a clean cloth and some mineral spirits. All the cleaning makes that final coat go down nice and smoothly. The final coat goes on in 2 steps. I like to finish the less visible area first and let that side dry before coming back and finishing the show face. This gives you the chance to clean up any last minute drips or marks that may have occurred on the backside. Once the finish is dry, it's time to reassemble a chair. I pretty much reversed the process I used to disassemble it. I started by adding the front legs to the seat, then the arms, then the pivot blocks, and finally the seat back. One thing I did differently this time than in the original chair video is I added a nylon washer anywhere that 2 pieces of wood would rub together. These washers removed a lot of the squeaks that the chairs had before. And just like that, the chairs are complete.
This was a fairly simple project, even if it did get stretched out a little bit longer than I had hoped. And I still have one more chair to go. Little sanding and a different finish gave these chairs a new life. They look great and they're comfortable to sit on again. And they go with the tables. If you have any thoughts of how I could have done this project differently, more efficiently, completely different, some spraying tips, because even though I've been spraying for over 20 years, had some challenges on this one. So I'd love to hear what you have to say. Just drop them in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, give us a thumbs up and share it with your friends and family. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and maybe the little bell and you get notified each time I put out a new video. So for now, have a great day, take care, we'll see you soon.